I really didn't plan on making two videos today, but it just seems like so much stuff is happening, and I might actually make another video over on the second channel today, reacting to Digital Foundry's video on the Switch 2. But obviously, we've been talking a lot about the Switch 2, and unfortunately, not everything involving the system has been positive towards it, just because of really a litany of different reasons. Game prices, of course, tariffs and stuff like that. There's definitely a bit of good and a bit of bad with this, but it seems like things are just getting super weird when it comes to like pre-orders and the system itself as well, and nobody really knows what is happening. And I think it says a lot about what could be potentially happening internally at Nintendo. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get into the pre-order thing is a quote from Doug Bowser about the price of the Switch 2 and how people might not be able to afford it, so they're still going to continue with the Switch 1 as well. So Doug Bowser told CBC, as we look at Nintendo Switch 2 and you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe that the pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. We recognize there are some people that might not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available, so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in on. Very strong Don Matrick vibes with this. Very strong Xbox 360 to Xbox One vibes with this. Oh, you can't afford the new system? Well, you still have the Xbox 360. You should be fine. Now, in a bubble, in a self-contained bubble, I don't think this quote is necessarily like the worst thing in the world. There is a bit of hubris attached to it, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I don't even necessarily think it's incorrect. You know, looking at the feature set that the Switch 2 has in terms of things like the screen and, you know, the resolutions it will be able to do, the power that is within the system, I think it's a very beefy system. And when you compare it to things like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally, it's obviously positioned in a price point manner that is very competitive, a lot better than the ROG Ally is. But the problem is, and I don't think Nintendo, something isn't clicking with Nintendo with this, is you've always been the cheaper alternative by usually a good margin. Now, you could say things about the N64, this, that, and the other, but the N64, the hardware was cheaper than the PlayStation 1. It was cheaper than the Sega Saturn. They made up for it on the game side of things. Whereas this, $450 for a base system, an $80 Mario Kart World, is definitely a very different Nintendo, and that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, especially considering in the modern gaming era, ever since the Nintendo GameCube for over 2 decades now, Nintendo has always positioned themselves as the value-priced hardware. Now, software can be a little bit different. Obviously, we saw some instances on the Switch, but even looking at Switch games, you know, PS5 and Xbox Series went up to $70, yet most first-party Switch games were $60. But now you have more expensive hardware. You have more expensive software as well. And we know that the hardware and the software, the $450 that might actually go up, and of course the software side of things, the $80 software, according to Nintendo themselves, has nothing to do with the new tariffs that are being put into place. So you have to recognize that this is just kind of a different Nintendo, I guess you would say. And there's people that are going to like it. There are people that are not going to like it. But I guess you have to accept it, because unless something catastrophic happens, then it's not going to change. But like I said, we've got some pre-order updates as well, because things are just, they're just getting out of control with this. So pre-orders have gone up in various different regions: Australia, Europe, Japan. I believe Japan. I'm not 100% sure on that, but at least in like Australia and Europe and stuff like that, people have been able to pre-order the Nintendo Switch 2 system. Now, of course, the US was then told that they would have to wait to do pre-orders. It was supposed to be the 9th, which is tomorrow, but they have to reassess the tariff situation, which I want to talk about in just a second. But now this is extending into Canada as well. Now we have another wrinkle into this because now Canada will not be able to pre-order the Nintendo Switch 2 tomorrow. This was just announced as being a thing that is happening. So the day before you're supposed to pre-order it, now you can't pre-order it in Canada. And they say it's because they're analyzing, tariff conditions and marketplace conditions, but you've already said that the system has nothing to the 450 price point has nothing to do with tariffs, with these new tariffs that are being allegedly put into place. Kind of got to see what ends up happening with things like this. But you've already said that that is not a factor. You've already said that you have systems here stateside already sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So why are US and Canada pre-orders being delayed unless there is something happening with those pre-orders, unless you are planning on potentially changing the price of something, because you have came out and said that the system will still launch on June 5th, but you haven't said that the price is going to remain the same. And this, it's really, and not all of it is Nintendo's fault. Not all of it, but some of it is. Some of this is Nintendo's fault. If you would have released this in 2024 like was initially, originally scheduled, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. This would all be a new topic, a new breath of fresh air, because you would already have systems in all of these different regions. Like, we haven't heard, Sony and PlayStation come out and say, well, we got to raise the price of the PS5 yet. You haven't heard Xbox do something like that either. It's bad timing on Nintendo's part, but I'm not going to hold that against them. But what I will hold against them is really their own words. If it has nothing to do with the tariffs, the price point, the 450, then people should be able to pre-order it, tomorrow. And then as time goes on, you need to reassess things. That's fine. That's understandable. That is understandable of how you're going to do things. But this just adds into the mass confusion with the Nintendo Switch 2, because now there are two of the larger regions for video game sales, the United States and Canada, that are now being negatively impacted and not able to pre-order the system. We assume it's going to be the same price point, but we haven't gotten a confirmation from Nintendo. And if it was going to be the same price point, why would we be delaying the pre-orders to begin with? Is Nintendo going to have to walk back that $450 and $500 bundle? I think they might have to. And the thing of it is if there's enough PlayStations and enough Steam Decks and, all these other platforms that are out there, if there's enough here in the United States to where they don't have to do that at the same time that Nintendo does that, you and I might understand it. Because, we're following the video game industry. You're a smart individual. You watch RGT85. You hit that subscribe button. You have notifications turned on. But the average consumer doesn't know a damn thing about it. They don't understand anything about this. They just see a price point and they're like, why is this more than this? Because if you come in higher than a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series, especially a PlayStation 5 at launch, it's not going to be the best look. That's all I'm going to say. I'm still going to buy it because I got to review this stuff for you guys. I got to make sure you are getting your money's worth. So, yeah. Okay. Let me know what you think of all this in the comment section down below. The clusterfuck rolls on, people. It continues to go on. The wheel in the sky keeps on turning. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. Let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. Be sure to check out the video from earlier today where we talk about Doug Bowser poo-pooing on people, essentially. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, share, hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.